Hello and welcome back to Everyday Writers, your one-stop shop for demystifying the writing process. We're here to be helpful guides on your journey to becoming a published author. I'm one of your hosts, Crystal McQueen.
And I'm your other host, Jordan S. Keller. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Today, we're discussing writing groups and their importance.
And we've mentioned our writing group, the Queen City Fiction Writers, in the past, and Jordan was one of the original founding members. So, Jordan, why don't you give us a little bit of history and background on it?
Yeah, sure. So the group was first founded in 2017, and it was through Meetup. And except for a little break in 2020 due to everything, we've met regularly every 2 weeks since 2017. In each meeting, we all read each other's submissions aloud and then mark up the pages in real time and having to have our discussion after what we liked, what wasn't working for us, areas we thought could be improved on. We faced a lot of growing pains when we first started in 2017, and our method of feedback doesn't work for everyone, but for our core members that we have now, it's a lot of people find benefit from it.
Well, and like we have a lot of diverse experiences and perspectives in our group, and I think that that's what makes us so unique and bound as a group. You know, we're not all sci-fi writers, we're not all literary writers. We've all got different genres like satire and sci-fi and dark humor and fantasy and literary, which helps the feedback from being like too rote, like trying to get too much into the you absolutely have to do it this way every single time. Before Bill and I, my husband, found Queen City Fiction Writers, we bounced around a lot because the feedback was so genre specific. Like, you can't have a prologue because people don't read like prologues. And that's somewhat true for fantasy and sci-fi readers, but that's not true at all for literary. And it's not true if you're doing historical fiction. It's not true if you're doing mystery. And so we just sought feedback from people who could make our stories better, not make our stories more like what they wanted to read. And so in Queen City Fiction Writers, we found people focused more on the writing than on the expectations of the genre. And I think that that's like the number one thing that made us stick together as writers is that we're all very serious about our craft. Um, and that was really hard to find. So I know that it was a lot of trial and error when you first started this group. Why don't you
Yeah.
talk about some of the pain points that happened in the beginning stages of this group?
Absolutely. I want to touch back real fast. You said our group is really geared towards people who want to be published. And on our original meetup page, that was the first line of text in our description was this group is for serious authors only with the goal of being published. And so that really helped like pressure our writers to become better, to write better, to get to a position where they could be published. But one of our earliest obstacles was location. We were very unique. We needed a place that was quiet enough to hear each other read aloud, that would serve food and drinks, that was well lit. It was hard to read in some dingy bars we tried out, and also places that would allow 10 plus people to sit around a table for 2 plus hours and only order a Diet Coke or a side salad. And we thought about going to like library conference rooms, which would love to have had us, but there's no food or drinks there, and a lot of our members really appreciated the food and the drink options.
Well,
Um, and
do you remember when we first started coming? So it was in 2021. So the
Yeah,
pandemic was kind of winding down, but people weren't comfortable being out. And we went to Gaslight, which is a bar in Clifton, and it was very quiet, right? And the light was great, and we could sit there for hours, and we would be maybe one of two tables.
yep,
But then as people started coming back out, it got louder and louder, and the food got more and more expensive.
and smaller portioned, and yeah, I do miss Gaslight burgers. They
I do
they were
too.
so good. Um, And then besides location though, another obstacle we had was member size. And with us being on Meetup originally, any number of people could come and we started trying to do a reservation cap, but then some of our normals couldn't come because they RSVP'd too late. And that was bad because like you and Bill had come and you had been coming for 6 straight weeks and then you guys couldn't come because a random person signed up. And that was really hard because these random people we would get, sometimes they were great, awesome, gave great feedback, received great feedback, and were had that same goal in mind of getting published. And other times we would have just one-shot writers who would come in, get feedback and leave and never come back again. And me and the other organizer, we felt very almost taken advantage of. Like we're not just
Yeah.
your free editing service. Um, Yeah, so the location, the size, and then it was about that time we moved away from meeting publicly and we started going to a member's house and we had solidified our 10 core members and it does feel a little bad. I almost feel like we are excluding people now because they're like, "Oh, I want to join." And it's like, "Oh, sorry, we've already got our 10 slots filled." But we work so well together and we trust each other's feedback so well
Yeah,
when
but
new people come in.
I don't think we're excluding anybody. And like, I feel like that's really difficult because when people would just show up and then leave, you wouldn't see them for 6 weeks and then they would come back. And it just got really frustrating to be like, well, we have 10 people and we want to get to pieces of that everybody has brought, but only for people that are like actually going to get value out of it. We don't want to waste our time. We don't want to waste their time. And so I know it was really hard to close the group, that it was a really tough decision. But for us, we've just become such close knit friends
I mean,
that
Fable.
right. Like, I mean, we go away
Yeah.
together every year, twice a year to just write. And I think that, like you can't have some random person sign up on the internet and then like stay in a house with them. Like that's kind of scary.
Yeah, I know before that first retreat, you and I talked a lot. Like, do we trust these people? Like, should we get their money in cash first because we're renting a house together? And can you talk about sort of what planning goes into these writing retreats? Because you put on our first one and it was great.
I have the best writing group ever. I am super, super extra. I once told somebody that like I really related to Monica on Friends, like because I just want to host everything. I want to make sure everybody has a good time and everybody's going to have forced family fun. And
Never
and every
forced.
everybody in our group is like so into just becoming better writers. But when you're at home, there's always a distraction. A dog wants out. You got a kid. Somebody calls. You need to, change over the laundry. And there's just no concentrated time. Even if you try to lock yourself in a room for 2 hours, do you get to do that once a week, twice a week? And so the idea for this writing retreat was for us to all get away from all of the demands of life and have dedicated writing time. And so we all go in on a house together. We all get, we all split the food. We all, have different kinds of games. There's writing prompts that we do. But the most important part is over the course of a weekend, we have 6 2-hour sessions of dedicated writing. You're not allowed to interrupt anybody. You're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to do anything distracting to the people that need to write. And you wouldn't believe how much more productive that is than trying to write in your house. And like my favorite part of the retreat, at the very end of it, everybody goes around and just reads a little section of what they wrote. Not for critique, but just to say, like, I got words on the page. I made progress. I did something. And for some people, that's, getting them back in the habit. For some people, it's getting them over the hump. One time, Mark, who has been on the show, he edited a whole book over
Yeah,
the weekend. And Jordan, I believe in our last writing retreat, you got like something ridiculous, like 18,000 words. And I think it was Roman, right?
it was close. Yeah, it was Failing Gravity. I just call it by Roman, that's the main character's name. My goal was to get 12,000 words, so 2,000 per writing stint we did. And 18 would have been incredible, but I got about 15,000 words altogether. But granted, I only kept about 4,000 of those words. Um, you had mentioned in our character creation episode where you would write all this backstory for your character and never use it. And it felt like that. Like I had all this extra material about the world, the characters, their habits, and it's not in the book, but it comes forward through their smaller actions and having the time, the opportunity, the privilege of myself to just write for 6+ hours. Incredible. And so it helped me clear up all these plot holes I had. But yeah, but like I said, I'm so grateful that you planned our first retreat, gave us that perfect template to follow. And my favorite thing about our retreats is forcing each other to write together. There's just something so contagious about being creative with each other in this same space. And I usually sit at the dining room table and another member will sit across from me and we will not say a single word for 2 hours, but just seeing each other write, I felt like I was racing. Like, how many words does Nick have? I have to get more than Nick. Um,
You won,
I won.
definitively.
But I think Nick kept all the words, so
Well, and it's about genuine accountability, right? Like
yeah.
nobody's getting mad at you if you don't write a single word. Nobody's getting upset, but also everybody's excited and celebrates your successes. And that's, I think, I guess the most important part of writing community is that accountability. It's not like having somebody calling you and checking in, did you write today? But, I want to learn more about your story. And oh, let me tell you about mine. And I think that that is just so important.
I loved it. Like after every 2 hour session, we'd all take a little snack break. I'm like, what would you work on? What'd you get to? And then the next 2 hours, I'm remembering, like, did you figure out how to solve such and such? And like it just made the writing process so much more, it just built that community so well. And like you're not alone in this and people are invested. And sometimes you need that push early on to finish that novel because you've got all these invested readers, people who care about you, your craft, your characters. And it's
Yeah.
just a beautiful thing to have a writing community like that.
I
Um,
wish everybody had a writing community. There's so often that, especially in those early days where people would show up and want to share their work, but feedback is so personal. It's like so intimate that if you don't know the person, um, it could feel very much like an attack. Like, well, you don't know me, you don't know my story, you don't know my genre, whatever the insert reason here. But we've been together so long, and it was a painful start, like we went through quite a few people before we ended up with our final 10. But like there's a trust, there's a bond there. And even though we don't write the same stuff, like we're at everybody's book lunch, we're at everybody's, like we celebrate everything that everybody in our group does. And that's the writing community that I wish for everyone.
I'm a fond believer that writing can be lonely, but being a writer shouldn't be. And uh, I mentioned our group, Queen City Fiction Writers. We started on Meetup, and that's a great place to look in your area. Already established writing group. But if there's none on Meetup, I've been told libraries will have like bulletin boards up with opportunities, and
Mhm.
you can put your own flyer up. You can start your own Meetup. It's not a crazy, complicated system, and it's just taking that first step, meeting people, being vulnerable, sharing your work.
Yeah.
And like you said, like just that trust with your feedback givers and going in realizing that your story won't be for everyone. So you're going to get some bad feedback early on, but it's all part of the community and it's all worth
It's growing pains. And I know that like we're winding down on the episode, but like I feel like I need to, you know, um echo what you're saying is that like it takes a while for somebody not only to understand your story, but understand you as a writer.
it.
And
Oh my
so
gosh, yeah.
understanding like it was very funny the other day Nick gave me feedback and he was like, well, I don't think you should start with present day on the first chapter, first couple of chapters until it actually goes into the past. And I made a face. I have no ability to keep my face quiet, but anyway, I made a face and he just laughed at me because we're such good friends. Like
Yeah.
he didn't get offended that I didn't want his feedback, like that feedback. I always want
Mhm.
his feedback.
Yeah.
But he didn't get offended that I didn't take his feedback and like I didn't get offended that he gave it to me and thought like that was useless feedback. It wasn't. And I feel like that's because we have such strong trust that feedback eventually gets to the point where you not only understand the author, but you also understand what they're trying to do with their work. And that's not going to happen day one at a meetup.
You're gonna have to keep going in, putting the work in. I So I'm gonna backtrack. Um, the whole like giving someone feedback and them not taking it should never upset you. And I experienced that a lot early on. New people would come in, be like, I am the expert on X, Y, and Z, and and you need to do this because of this. And I did it, and they got really upset. It's like that doesn't work for the story. Like just give it time. Um,
Well,
so yeah,
nobody
it's about
knows
that
your
trust.
story better than you do. But can I tell our story?
Yeah, of
Because
course.
part of making a writing group is being vulnerable, right? Like putting yourself out there. And it's really hard for adults to make friends. Like you don't go, it's not like going on the playground and be like, let's be friends. And then suddenly you're best friends. But I sent you a text and I said, hey, this is kind of embarrassing and I kind of feel like I'm asking you to prom, but can we go to Panera together and build our websites together? And like, seriously, that's Jordan and my start. Like, that's
Yeah,
how we've been
it's
like
great.
super, super good friends. We text each other almost daily,
It is daily.
multiple times.
You're taking a trip next month. I'm gonna be like, what am I gonna do? Chris will be gone for 2 weeks.
So I do think that if you're trying to build a writing community and you're just expecting somebody to be like, hey, be my friend, um, you should be that person. You should be like, I'm going to put myself out there, even if you're an introvert, which I absolutely am.
We yanked you right from that.
Just, ask somebody to prom. I believe
Or
your
Panera.
response to me was, I would totally go to prom with you.
I would. I took my mom to my first prom, so it's fine.
Well, there we go. I love your mom. So
Oh,
I'm sorry this went a little bit
oh,
long, but that's all the time that we have for everyday writers. Thank you so much for letting us be part of your writing journey. And if you're ready to take your writing group like up a notch and you want to do a writing retreat, both Jordan and I will have our outline of the planning that we do on our websites, crystalmcqueen.com. And I could say
Jordan
it,
S.
but
Keller author.
I might get it wrong. I would have missed the author. Jordan
It'll
S.
be in the
Keller.
description.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
And so I will also post one if you want to go on an individual retreat. That is something that my husband and I do quite a bit. We'll go out of town, and you can get like Airbnbs for pretty cheap. I think the one we're staying at is $50 a night, and just get yourself away and be able to make some progress on your book. So both of those will be available on our websites. And just remember, diversifying your writing pals, it really is a good thing.
creativity is super contagious.
And if there's not a writing group in your area, it's scary, but don't be afraid to form one. And it'll be painful, but it'll be worth it in the end.
All those awkward early stages are just going to be something you'll laugh at later. But please do join us next week, or sorry, join us next time for the ins and out of turning your book into an audiobook, and we'll discuss approaches, the different processes, and the fees that you may incur. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything, and please let us know what you would name your writing group. We'll see you next.
And don't forget, every day is a great day to write. It's a good day, but it could also be a great day. See you
Day.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.